I just won an $8.7 million judgment against Victoria Ashworth and her entire HOA development company. The same woman who looked me dead in the eye 3 years ago and said, "People like you are trash. You don't belong anywhere near properties like these." She's now facing 22 months in federal prison for fraud, her real estate license is permanently revoked, and I own every single asset her company ever had. You heard that right. $8.7 million, 143 homes, and the 67 acres of Montana land she built them on, land that was never hers to begin with. Here's what I did. My name's Derek Mason. I'm 47 years old, and I fix diesel engines for a living. I work at Hanson's Truck Repair in Billings, Montana. Been there 19 years. I drive a 2006 Ford F-150 with 311,000 miles on it and a transmission that whines in third gear. 3 years out of a divorce that cost me damn near everything. 2 kids in college, Emma at Montana State, Jake at University of Montana. Nothing special about me except one thing. My grandfather left me 67 acres of pristine Montana grassland when he died in February 2019. That land? He bought it for $8,400 in 1963, paid it off over 15 years working double shifts at the lumber mill. By 2019, it was worth $3.2 million, maybe more. It had a creek that ran year-round, a view of the Beartooth Mountains that made you believe in something bigger, and my grandfather's cabin, a small 2-bedroom place he built with his own hands in 1965. I loved that land. Every memory I have of my childhood includes that property. Learning to fish in Willow Creek, helping Grandpa fix the cabin's roof when I was 12, sitting on the porch at sunset while he told stories about working the mill. When he died, February 14th, 2019, Valentine's Day of all days, he left it to me. Not my cousins, not my uncle, me. Because, as he wrote in his will, Derek's the only one who gives a damn about this place. The property came with a handwritten note. "Son, the only thing between you and people trying to take what's yours is a piece of paper. I kept every receipt, every tax bill, every document. You do the same." I did. But life got complicated. The divorce was finalized in April 2019. My ex-wife got the house, I got debt, and every other weekend with the kids. I was working 68-hour weeks trying to keep up with child support and college tuition. Emma needed $24,000 a year for school. Jake needed $22,000. I was making $67,000 a year before taxes. You do the math. I visited the property exactly 3 times between 2019 and 2022. Once in March 2019 to scatter Grandpa's ashes by the creek. Once in November 2020 for a quick fence check. Once in July 2021 to show the kids where their great-grandfather lived. But I kept paying property taxes every year on time. $8,470 in 2019, $8,890 in 2020, $9,240 in 2021, $9,680 in 2022. I have every receipt. I didn't know what was happening on that land until September 23rd, 2022. I drove out there to scatter some of my grandmother's ashes. She passed in August, asked to be with Grandpa. I took the county road exit, turned onto Meadowbrook Lane like I'd done 100 times before, and my stomach dropped. Where my grandfather's cabin had stood, there were houses. Not just a few, 143 luxury homes. McMansions, each one at least 4,200 square feet with 3-car garages and landscaping that must have cost $40,000 per house. In the center of it all stood a massive clubhouse with an Olympic-sized pool, tennis courts, and a sign that read, Meadowbrook Estates, a Victoria Ashworth community. I pulled up to what used to be the entrance to my grandfather's driveway. There was a gate, an actual wrought iron gate with a security camera and a card reader. A security guard stepped out of a booth. Young guy, maybe 25, wearing a uniform that said Ashworth Security. "Can I help you?" he asked, not friendly. "Yeah, I own this property," I said. My voice sounded weird, distant, like I was underwater. He laughed. Actually laughed. "Sir, this is private property, Meadowbrook Estates. You need to leave." No, you don't understand. My grandfather... Sir? His hand moved to his radio. I'm asking you nicely. Leave or I call the sheriff. I sat there for maybe 10 seconds, just staring. Then I backed up, turned around, and drove to the county records office. I sat at one of those old wooden tables in the county records building and requested every document related to my property. The clerk, a woman named Susan, who'd worked there for 30 years, brought me a box. Is this about Meadowbrook? She asked quietly. Yeah, that's my land. She looked at me for a long moment. You might want to get a lawyer. I spent 4 hours going through documents. My grandfather's original deed, dated March 17, 1963, notarized, filed, clear as day. Survey maps from 4 different decades, all showing the same 67-acre plot. Tax records going back to 1963, every single year paid in full on time. The most recent payment? Mine, from January 2022. I took photos of everything. 47 photos with my phone, each one time-stamped and GPS tagged. Then I drove home. That night, I spread everything across my kitchen table. And I mean everything. 1. Original property deed, March 17, 1963, notarized by Robert Hammond. 2. My grandfather's will, dated November 3, 2018, witnessed by 2 attorneys. 19 years of property tax receipts from 2003 to 2022. Survey maps from 4 different decades. Photos from my July 2021 visit showing the cabin still standing. Photos from September 23, 2022, showing 143 houses. Bank records proving I had paid every tax bill. A letter from the county in January 2022 confirming my ownership. At 9:47 p.m., I called the lawyer my union rep recommended. Her name was Rebecca Torres. Rebecca Torres was 52 years old, had been practicing property law for 26 years, and had won 14 out of 16 cases involving HOA disputes and land fraud. Her retainer was $28,000. I didn't have $28,000. I had $4,200 in my checking account. She met with me anyway. I showed her everything. She spent an hour looking through documents, saying nothing. Finally, she leaned back in her chair and whistled. Derek, this is beautiful. You have everything. Original deed, clean title, tax records, photographic evidence. This is the most well-documented case I've seen in 10 years. So I can get my land back? Oh, you'll get it back. But here's what I want you to do. Nothing. I stared at her. Nothing? Nothing. Don't contact them. Don't confront anyone. Let them keep operating. Every day they continue, every house they sell, every HOA fee they collect, it's all evidence. They're building our case for us. And here's the genius part. The longer this goes on, the more impossible it becomes for them to claim ignorance. But they're on my land. I know. And when we're done, you'll own everything they built on it. Trust me. She agreed to work on contingency, meaning she'd take a percentage of whatever we won. Her only condition, I'd document everything that happened from that point forward. I documented everything. 2 weeks after that meeting, I received my first cease and desist letter. It came from Ashworth Development's law firm, Morrison, Sterling, and Cross. The letter claimed I was harassing Meadowbrook residents by trespassing on private property and threatening legal action based on fraudulent documentation. It threatened to fine me $1,000 per day if I came near the property again. I photographed the letter, forwarded it to Rebecca. She laughed. They just admitted they know about you. Keep it coming. November 2022. I started getting code enforcement violations at my actual house. My house where I lived 40 miles from Meadowbrook. First violation, grass exceeds county height limit. It was October in Montana. My grass was dormant and 3 inches tall. The fine, $450. I took photos with a tape measure showing grass height, filed an appeal. The appeal was denied. Second violation, unpermitted structure on property. They meant my shed, the shed that had been there for 22 years, the shed that I had a building permit for issued in 2001. I found the original permit in my files, submitted it. The violation was quietly dropped, but not before I'd spent 6 hours dealing with it. Rebecca told me to document everything. Times, dates, names of county officials. I did.
December 2022. Victoria Ashworth posted on the Meadowbrook Estates Facebook group. A friend of a friend sent me a screenshot. The post read, "Alert! A man named Derek Mason is trying to scam Meadowbrook families by claiming he owns our community. He has fake documents and is attempting to intimidate residents. If you see him, do not engage. Contact security immediately. We're working with local law enforcement to address this criminal activity. People like him are trash. They see a successful community and think they can steal it through lies and fake paperwork. We will not let that happen." The post got 470 shares, 318 comments. Most of them said things like, "This is disgusting, and someone needs to deal with this guy and hope he goes to jail." My boss, Mike Hendricks, called me into his office on December 19th, 2022. "Derek, I need to ask you something. Are you trying to sue some HOA? I'm trying to get my property back." "Yeah." "I got a call. Someone saying you're harassing people, that you're unstable." I felt my jaw clench. "Mike, I've worked here 19 years. You know me." "I do, but I gotta take this seriously. I'm putting you on administrative leave. 2 weeks, paid. I just need this to blow over." 2 weeks became 3. An investigation that found nothing because there was nothing to find, but the damage was done. 3 guys I'd worked with for years stopped talking to me. One of them said, "I don't know what you did, but I don't want any part of it." I documented everything. Recorded my conversation with Mike. Montana is a one-party consent state. Kept emails, saved the Facebook post. Rebecca said, "They're making mistakes. This is all evidence." February 2023. Emma called me crying. "Dad, there's a man following me." "What? Where?" "At work. I'm at the coffee shop, and there's a man in a black SUV who's been parked outside for 3 hours. He keeps taking pictures." I told her to call campus police. They came, ran the plates. The SUV was registered to a private investigation firm out of Billings, Redstone Investigations. The PI's name was Marcus Kellerman. I hired a lawyer to request records. Turned out Victoria Ashworth had hired Kellerman to gather information on Derek Mason and his family. 2 days later, Jake got a voicemail, a blocked number. The message said, "Tell your dad to back off or things get worse for all of you." I filed a police report. The detective, a guy named Ramirez, was sympathetic but honest. "Unless they do something physical, there's not much we can do." I filed for a restraining order consideration, documented everything, sent it all to Rebecca. She sent me a text, "They're panicking. Good."
April 2023. I got a letter from the IRS. I was being audited. A routine random audit focusing specifically on my grandfather's inheritance and the property I'd received. The audit cost me $9,400 in accountant fees. It took 4 months. They found nothing. 0 discrepancies. At the end, the IRS agent, a woman named Patricia Wu, told me off the record, "Someone filed a suspicious activity report claiming your inheritance was unreported income. It wasn't. You're clear. Just so you know, that kind of false report is a crime." I requested a Freedom of Information Act report to find out who filed it. The request was denied for ongoing investigation reasons. I spent $9,400 I didn't have, put it on a credit card, sent every receipt to Rebecca. June 2023. I came home from work to find my truck keyed. Deep scratches along the driver's side. The word thief spray painted on my garage door. Misspelled. I'd installed security cameras after the Ashworth incident. The footage showed a white Ford Transit van, partial plate visible, H47. I filed a police report, ran the partial plate. It matched a vehicle registered to Ashworth Security Services. Sheriff Tom Brennan, who handled the report, was polite but dismissive. Could be anyone, hard to prove. Later, I found out Brennan golfed with Victoria's husband every Thursday. I documented everything anyway. August 2023. I came home from a double shift at 11:37 p.m. My back door was forced open, deadbolt broken. Nothing stolen, but my files had been disturbed. Papers moved, drawers opened. On my kitchen table, there was a note written in block letters. Last warning, drop the case or lose everything.
What they didn't know, I'd hidden cameras inside my house after the truck incident. 4 cameras, infrared, motion activated. The footage was crystal clear. A man in a dark jacket, face visible. He spent 14 minutes searching my house. At one point, he stood in front of a camera, and I could see his name badge, J. Sterling, Ashworth Development VP. James Sterling, Victoria's business partner and vice president of Ashworth Development. I called Rebecca at midnight. She told me to call the police immediately. I did. This time they took it seriously. Breaking and entering, burglary, criminal trespass. They arrested James Sterling at 7:18 a.m. the next morning. He was released on $50,000 bail the same day, but now we had him on criminal charges. October 2023, Ashworth Development filed a lien against my house. They claimed I owed $53,000 in unpaid HOA dues and legal fees related to Meadowbrook Estates. I'd never lived in Meadowbrook. I'd never been a member of the HOA. The lien was completely fraudulent, but it tanked my credit score, dropped 160 points overnight. My credit card company raised my interest rate. My bank sent me a letter about potential foreclosure proceedings if the lien wasn't cleared. Rebecca filed an emergency motion. It took 4 months to get the lien declared fraudulent and removed. 4 months of stress, phone calls, and sleepless nights. She told me, every fraudulent move they make is another nail in their coffin. November 2023. The local newspaper, the Billings Gazette, ran a story. Local man claims he owns Meadowbrook HOA. The article painted me as delusional, a conspiracy theorist, someone who couldn't accept that his grandfather's property had been legally sold years ago. The reporter, a guy named Tom Ashworth, yes, related to Victoria, her brother-in-law, never contacted me for comment. I filed a complaint with the paper's ombudsman. 6 weeks later, they published a retraction and an apology. But by then, the damage was done. I saved everything. Screenshots, print copies, timestamps. January 2024, Rebecca called me. Derek, we just got the smoking gun. During discovery, the legal process where both sides have to share evidence, we'd subpoenaed all internal communications from Ashworth Development. Emails, texts, memos, everything. In that mountain of documents, Rebecca found an email chain from victoria.ashworth@ashworthdevelopment.com to j.sterling@ashworthdevelopment.com, date March 4th, 2021, subject the Mason property. I found the loophole. The owner is a truck mechanic, divorced, works constantly, hasn't visited in over a year. Property taxes are on autopay, so he probably doesn't even think about it. If we start development now, by the time he notices, we'll have sold 80 plus lots. Even if he fights us, legal fees will bankrupt him before he gets anywhere. I know his type, barely scraping by. No way he affords a lawyer who can match Morrison Sterling. We file the permits under our LLC, push everything through by June, and we're golden. Start site prep next week. Rebecca read it to me over the phone. Then she laughed. Actually laughed. Derek, they documented their fraud in writing on a company email server. In 26 years, I've never seen anything this stupid. The trial started on March 4th, 2024. The courthouse, built in 1889, smelling like old wood and floor polish, was packed. All 143 Meadowbrook families showed up. Local news crews, bloggers, people standing in the hallway because there weren't enough seats. Victoria Ashworth sat at the defendant's table wearing a cream-colored Chanel suit and a $22,000 Cartier bracelet. Her lawyer, Gerald Morrison, was a partner at Montana's most expensive law firm. He billed $950 an hour. Rebecca wore a simple black blazer and carried one box of documents. Judge Martha Hernandez, 68 years old, 33 years on the bench, looked at both sides and said, "Let's begin." Morrison's opening statement was polished, condescending. He claimed my documents were of questionable authenticity, that my grandfather's deed was likely forged, that I was a desperate man fabricating evidence to extort a successful businesswoman.
Rebecca's opening was 5 minutes long. Your Honor, the defendant built 143 homes on land she did not own. She knew she didn't own it. We have emails proving she knew. We have tax records proving Mr. Mason owns it. We have surveys proving the boundaries. This isn't a complex case. This is theft on a massive scale, and we're going to prove it. Judge Hernandez leaned forward slightly. Day 2. The county clerk, Susan Brennan, testified. She brought the original deed filed in 1963, the original survey maps, tax records going back 61 years. These records, she said, show continuous ownership by Samuel Mason from 1963 to 2019, then Derek Mason from 2019 to present. Every year, no gaps, no transfers, clean title. Morrison tried to argue the documents could have been altered. Susan looked at him like he'd just insulted her mother. I've worked in this office for 30 years. These documents are stored in a climate-controlled vault. They're genuine. If you're suggesting otherwise, you're suggesting I'm part of a conspiracy. Morrison backed off. Day 3. The original surveyor, Donald Price, now 81 years old, testified via video call from Arizona. I remember that property. Drew those maps myself in 1963. Samuel Mason hired me. Paid me $340. I remember because it was my first big job. The boundaries are exactly as shown on these maps. Morrison had no questions. Day 4. Rebecca presented the email. The courtroom went silent. You could hear people breathing. Gerald Morrison's face went from confident to pale in about 4 seconds. He leaned over to Victoria, whispered urgently. She shook her head. He whispered again. She whispered back, angry. Judge Hernandez read the email twice. Then she looked at Morrison. Counselor approached the bench. The sidebar conversation lasted 8 minutes. I couldn't hear what was said, but Judge Hernandez looked furious. When Morrison returned to his seat, he looked like he'd aged 10 years. Judge Hernandez spoke to the court. This trial will continue, but I'm adding fraud, wire fraud, and conspiracy to my considerations. This is no longer just a property dispute. Day 5. 8 Meadowbrook homeowners testified. Teachers, nurses, a retired veteran. They all said the same thing. They were told the land was legally acquired, that Ashworth Development had all permits and clear title. They had no idea the property was stolen. One woman, Sarah Chen, a third-grade teacher with 2 kids, cried on the stand. We spent our life savings, $680,000. If we lose the house, we lose everything. I felt sick. These people were victims too. Day 6. Closing arguments. Morrison tried to argue that even if there were irregularities, Victoria had acted in good faith and the homeowners should be protected. Rebecca stood up and said, "Good faith?" She wrote an email detailing how she'd steal someone's property and bankrupt them before they could fight back. That's not good faith. That's premeditated fraud. And yes, these homeowners are victims. But they're victims of Victoria Ashworth, not Derek Mason. He didn't sell them fraudulent property. She did. March 14th, 2024. The verdict. Judge Hernandez spoke for 14 minutes. I recorded every word. In 33 years on this bench, I've seen greed, I've seen fraud, and I've seen powerful people abuse the legal system to hurt ordinary citizens. But rarely have I seen all three combined with such brazen contempt for the law and basic human decency. The evidence is overwhelming. Derek Mason owns this property. He has owned it continuously since 2019. His grandfather owned it from 1963 to 2019. There is no gap in ownership, no ambiguity, no question.
Victoria Ashworth knowingly built on land she did not own. She documented her intent to defraud in writing. She harassed Mr. Mason and his family. She filed false reports. She committed perjury in this courtroom. Here is my ruling. 1. All property known as Meadowbrook Estates, including all structures, improvements, and assets, is hereby returned to Derek Mason. 2. Victoria Ashworth and Ashworth Development are ordered to pay $8.7 million in damages. This includes property value, emotional distress, lost wages, and punitive damages. 3. All legal fees incurred by Mr. Mason, $340,000, will be paid by the defendants. 4. Meadowbrook HOA is dissolved immediately. 5. Victoria Ashworth's real estate license is revoked. 6. I'm referring this case to the FBI for investigation of wire fraud, mail fraud, and conspiracy. 7. All assets of Ashworth Development are frozen pending criminal proceedings. Victoria Ashworth sat frozen. Her lawyer put his head in his hands. The gallery erupted. Judge Hernandez banged her gavel. That night at 2:47 a.m., Victoria Ashworth broke into my house. I wasn't there. After the verdict, Rebecca told me, "Don't go home tonight." She's desperate. Desperate people do stupid things. I stayed at my daughter Emma's apartment. The cameras caught everything. Victoria, wearing dark clothes, breaking the back door again, searching through rooms, looking for something. Maybe documents she thought might help an appeal. Maybe just rage. Police arrested her at 3:14 a.m. Bail was set at $500,000. Her assets were frozen. She couldn't make bail. She spent 8 days in county jail before her family posted bond. 2 weeks after the verdict, I called a town hall meeting. 143 families showed up at the community center. They were terrified. Parents holding kids, elderly couples who'd retired there, a veteran in a wheelchair. Sarah Chen, the teacher who'd cried on the stand, stood up. "Are you going to evict us?" I looked at all of them, families who'd done nothing wrong except trust the wrong person. "No," I said. "I'm not going to evict you." The room exhaled. "Here's what I'm going to do. I'm setting up a land trust with an independent board. You can stay. You'll pay rent to own over 30 years at 0% interest. Your monthly payments will be less than your HOA fees were. After 30 years, the property transfers to you, fully. You'll own your homes." Sarah Chen started crying again. This time she came up and hugged me. An elderly man, maybe 85, stood up. "Your grandfather would be proud of you, son." The room gave me a standing ovation. It lasted almost 4 minutes. I didn't know what to do, so I just stood there. Victoria Ashworth pleaded guilty to 14 federal charges in July 2024. Wire fraud, mail fraud, conspiracy to commit fraud, making false statements to federal investigators. She was sentenced to 22 months in federal prison, ordered to pay $4.3 million in restitution, and banned from real estate for life. James Sterling, her business partner, pleaded guilty to conspiracy and got 18 months probation. 3 county officials who'd fast-tracked her permits irregularly were fired. 1 faces charges. 6 months later, I kept 5 acres with my grandfather's cabin site. I'm rebuilding the cabin exactly as he built it. Same dimensions, same materials where I can find them. Emma and Jake help on weekends. The remaining 62 acres house 143 families who are building equity for the first time in their lives. Property values are stable. There's a new management company, a nonprofit that the residents elect. I used $500,000 of the settlement to start a scholarship fund in my grandfather's name, the Samuel Mason Integrity Scholarship. It helps first-generation college students study trades. 15 kids got scholarships this year. The story made national news. Local coverage won a regional Emmy. I turned down 3 book deals. I don't want to profit from this. I just wanted what was mine. I still drive the 2006 F-150, still work at Hanson's, still fix diesel engines.
But now, every weekend, I drive out to those 5 acres. I sit where my grandfather's porch used to be, look at the Beartooth Mountains, and listen to Willow Creek. 143 families are building their futures on land my grandfather loved. Kids play in yards, families grill dinner, people live their lives. And every single one of them is safe because my grandfather taught me one thing: keep your receipts. All of them. So here's my question for you. Have you ever dealt with someone who thought they could take what's yours just because they had more money, more power, more connections? Did you fight back or did you walk away? Drop your story in the comments below. I read every single one. And if you're facing something like this right now, document everything. Every email, every text, every conversation. Date stamp your photos. Keep your receipts. Because you never know when one piece of paper, one email, one deed, one tax receipt is going to be the thing that changes everything. Next week, I'm telling you about a woman who discovered her HOA president was embezzling $900,000 from the community fund. How did she catch him? With a spreadsheet and a library book on forensic accounting. You won't believe how it ends. Hit that subscribe button so you don't miss it. And remember, keep your receipts. All of them. Every single one.